In this video, we're going to take a look at how to make a couple of graphs in Excel. I've opened up the Stats 101 data set, made a copy of it, and now I'm going to make a copy of the original data sheet so I don't have to ever work off it. Let's just change the name of that copy to something else. Let's call it question 4 or something like that. All right. Now, I'm only going to use a couple of the columns in this particular data set. I'm going to get rid of all of the columns except for the respondent number, which I always keep, and then 2 movie ratings at the far right. So I'm going to delete all the rest. If there were any columns between these two, I could also delete them, but now I'm left with these 3. All right, now let's go down to the bottom here. You'll notice as we scroll down here that the Movie 1 ratings have values that go from 1 to 5, where 1 stands for very poor, 2 for poor, then neutral, good, and then 5 stands for very good. So those are ratings that students give to particular movies. Below the data, I'm going to leave at least 1 blank row and 1 blank column. I'm just going to be working at the bottom here, so I'll leave 1 blank row, and then underneath Movie 1 rating, type in Movie 1, under column C here, Movie 2, and then over here under column A, the values 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, because those are the, oops, there we go. Those are the different possible values here for the movie ratings. And then I'm going to fill in this little table here, this grid, with a function. And the function is going to be the Countif function. So let's go up and grab that. By the way, if you have trouble with deleting columns or any of the other things that I've talked about up to this point, take a look at the Getting Started in Excel video. All right, let's go up to Formulas, More Functions, Statistical, and I'm going to be using something called the Countif function. Not ifs, but Countif. The first argument is the range of values, in this case in Movie 1, because I'm underneath the Movie 1 column, that I'm going to be working on. So I'm going to click on B101, and I'm going to select all the way up to the top here, excluding the title. So the actual range will be B2 to B101. And for the criteria, I'm going to do this at first the most inefficient way. So I'm going to type in a 1. So it's going to count the number of 1s in column B. And it turns out that there are 17 1s. Now the problem with that is that I'd like to be able to copy this formula down, but the problem is that we're just counting 1s. So let's first of all change this 1 up here in the formula bar. I'm going to get rid of the 1, backspace, leave the comma, and I'm going to instead click on this cell here, which is A104, which references the 1 that I typed earlier. Now I push enter, and I still get a 17. So again, take a look at the formula. In the formula bar, here's the range of values all the way up to the top, and then it's looking for or referencing the 1s. So there's 17 of those. Now what I can do is I can copy this particular formula down. The quick way to copy a formula is to take your cursor, which is a fat plus sign, and move it to the bottom right of the cell until it changes into a thin black plus sign. So when it's right over top that lower corner, hold down the left mouse button and drag down. I can also just double click. Now that looks good, except that we've got a bit of a problem. First of all, what happened that was really good about this The 104 up here in the formula bar changes to a 105, to a 106, to a 107, to a 108. So as we copy it down, it references the 1, the 2, the 3, the 4, the 5. The problem is, though, is that this blue range, this range here, the original data that we were counting, also moves down. So by the time I get down here to row 108, my input range has shifted, and I've actually lost the numbers at the very top. So the whole thing is shifted down a row at a time. That doesn't work. So let's go back to the original formula up here in B104. And what we're going to do is we're going to put in dollar signs. Without dollar signs, we're using something called relative cell addressing, which is why the A104 changed to an A105, to a 106, to a 107, to a 108. But in order to stop the B's from changing from a 2 to a 3 to a 4 to a 5 and so on like that, we put a dollar sign between the B and the 2. Like that. Oops, that's not a dollar sign. Neither is that. There we go. So B2 dollar, then arrow over, and then B101. And then don't put it between the A and the 104. So what this does is it fixes or makes absolute the blue range, the input range. Now watch what happens when I copy this formula down. Take a look at the formula bar at the top, right up here. The A104 will change to a 105, to a 106, 107, 108, but this B2 to B101 will stay the same. Here we go. See what's happening? So that's great. Now, what we can do is we can highlight these cells and then again go and grab the corner and pull it across. Now they all show zeros here. Let's take a look at a formula and see what happened. Up here, because I didn't put a dollar sign in front of the B, when I copied the formula from column B to column C, the B's changed to C's. So that's using relative cell addressing. The problem is, though, is that the A's, A104, changed to B104. So I'm going to change that back to an A. And in fact, I'm going to do that all the way down. Now, this is actually inefficient. If you do this correctly, oops, let's go back up here. If you do this correctly, you should be able to put in, what's going on here? You should be able to put in dollar signs so that those A's will stay the same when you copy them down. There we go. That looks pretty clean now. All right, the next step is that instead of showing on my graph that I'm going to make 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, and 5s, which really doesn't mean anything to the reader, I'd like to be able to change this 1 to a very poor. Well, watch what happens. The 17 and the 18, or the 17 and the 8 change to zeros. And that's because the Countif function is trying to now count how many very poors there are in these columns. And of course there's none. So let me push a Control Z, or up here, here's the undo. So either of those will undo what we've got. And then I'm going to copy this particular table and just push Control C, or I can use the copy button here. And then I'm going to move down a couple of rows and just give some space here as well. And instead of doing a straight paste or a Control V, I'm going to click the little down arrow here and use one of the paste special functions, the paste values, the one that has the 1, 2, 3 symbol. And what that does is it changes the 17 up here with the Countif function to just the number 17. So the actual values. Now this is good because then I can go and change these into the proper labels. So this becomes very poor, this becomes poor, this becomes neutral, good, and very good. And I'm just going to highlight these cells here. Not that this has anything to do with the functionality of the thing, but just to focus us in on what we're going to be doing next here. All right, so these are the movie 1, movie 2 ratings, 17 very poors, 21 poors, and so on, and similarly for movie 2. We're going to make a chart out of this, and we're going to start with a 100% stacked column graph or chart. So I'm going to highlight all of these yellow cells, and again, the yellow color has nothing to do with the formatting or nothing to do with the functionality of the chart. You don't need to do that. It's just to focus us in on what we're doing here. So I highlight all of those cells, go to Insert, and then under Charts, I'm going to go to the vertical column charts, and specifically the third one at the top here, which is the 100% stacked column chart. Now the problem with this is that I've got 5 bars split into 2 movies, and I want the opposite. I want 2 bars split into 5 different rating categories. So the way that I do that is I go up to the top here and I find this little button that says switch the rows and the columns. And now that looks clean. Over here I can choose different kinds of styles. What's a good one? Let's do that one. Well, let's do one with numbers. There, that's better. And the last thing that I can do here is I can change the chart title to something more meaningful. So these are movie ratings of Stats 101 students, something like that. And I can change the size of that font. I can make that bigger, smaller, something like that. Okay, that is a clean looking graph, and I can simply click that. I can copy it, go to Home, copy. I can move across to Word and paste it. I'm not going to do that. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move that out of the way, move that over, maybe up a little bit. There we go. And then I'm going to make a pie graph. And in this pie graph, I'm only going to do it on movie 1, and I'm only going to use these cells. Let me highlight them in a different color. So I don't include the label at the very top that says movie 1, just the actual ratings and their frequencies. So highlight those cells, go to Insert, and then choose a chart. Pie graph, and I'll just do a 2D. All right, choose a style that you like. I'm going to choose one without labels because I want to show you how to add labels. So I'll choose this one here. Okay, adding labels to the pie slices. Right-click on any pie slice. There we go. And I'm going to add data labels. I think I chose all of them. I don't think that that makes a difference, but I'm just going to choose one slice here. Oh, well, I guess it doesn't matter. All right, so right-click and then add data labels. And what it does is it gives us the frequencies of each of the pie slices. Now I'm going to right-click on one of those numbers and format the data labels. And this set of selections comes up on the right here. I'm going to check box the category name, and I'm going to change the value to a percentage. Now, it doesn't make much difference in this particular case because we had 100 values, and so a 17 becomes 17%. But that would make a big difference if you're talking about, say, having 400 values. I could, of course, include both the value and the percentage if I want. Keep the leader lines on. What that is if I had a very thin slice, then it would put the label on the outside, and it could show a little line to the particular slice that it's referring to. All right, that's looking pretty clean. I'm going to go over here and X this selection box off like that. A couple things just to clean this up is because I've got all this information within the slices, I don't need the legend, so let's just click on that and push delete. And then for the chart title, of course, I'm going to change that. So these are these movie 1 ratings of Stats 101 students. And then I can just click on the actual chart there, go to Home, choose Copy, or again, Control-C, and then I won't do this part, but I'll go across to Word, give it a little space there, and paste it with a Control-V. And that ends the lesson.